Every once in a while, a game arrives that tries to push the boundaries. This one's been reported on by nearly every gaming news site, and tweeted against by internet slacktivists denouncing its existence. But what about this game as a whole? Is Hatred a mass murder simulator meant to only offend and encourage sadism, or does it aim for something bigger? Church here, and welcome to the Game Grinder. Today we'll be reviewing Hatred. Hatred was developed by Destructive Creations, an indie developer who, after a little digging, I'd found that members had come from another studio, the Farm 51, and worked on games like Necrovision and Painkiller Hell and Damnation. Hatred was released in June of 2015 and is available for the PC. It's worth mentioning that initially when the game was added to the digital gaming service Steam on its Greenlight program in October of 2014, it was pulled due to controversy and subject matter, but was later returned to the service with an apology to the developers from Valve's director Gabe Newell the following December. Hatred is an isometric twin-stick shooter. What this means is it has a third-person overhead view focusing on the X and Y axis, while in relation to current generation consoles, relies on one analog stick controlling aiming and the other controlling shooting. On the PC, they handle more typically of most PC games, with WASD handling left, right, back, and forward movement, with the mouse controlling aiming. Like most shooter-styled games, we get access to a series of weapons like pistols, shotguns, assault rifles, and various explosives from grenades and molotovs to rocket launchers. We can also kick, dodge, run, and crouch behind walls and barriers. Beginning each area, we are provided with a few objectives, mostly involving clearing out various locations of civilians or destroying certain targets. The main goal of Hatred is judgment through violence of the quote-unquote guilty according to the antagonist, or otherwise known as killing as many in-game civilians as possible. Of course, in any semi-realistic scenario, these sorts of heinous actions do not go unpunished. Nearly as soon as we begin playing, we'll be faced with intervening law enforcement packed with plenty of firepower to take us out. Officers may arrive on foot, in squad cars which oftentimes will try to run you down, to armored trucks. Eventually, the army may be called in with gun-mounted Humvees and heavily armored units, with heavy weaponry from assault rifles to rocket launchers. Additionally, upstanding citizens may pick up abandoned weapons and attempt to retaliate. Being under a constant hail of various gunfire, the game really takes on a run-and-gun style, where staying in one location for too long allows police or army units to easily overwhelm us. As opponents with weapons are slain, we can swap weapons with what they drop, or receive extra ammo if the gun is already equipped. In various locations, we may find extra caches of weapon and ammo, and sometimes even body armor. Law enforcement and army vehicles may be taken, and we can drive them around until we abandon the vehicle or it gets destroyed, but best not to be around when that happens. Driving can be a bit rough, and these types of games usually control like tanks, and keeping your directional control orientation while driving can be sluggish. It's also not too difficult to get stuck on terrain, or trapped in unmaneuverable spaces. Within most areas we visit, you'll find that most building walls or other environmental objects are fully destructible. Need to get in or out of a building in a pinch? Blow up the fucking wall with a grenade and problem solved. It's a blast. This can completely work against us at the same time, as when trying to elude the gunfire, I sometimes found myself thinking I was safe, only for a mounted machine gun to take out the protective barrier and riddle me full of bullets. I already mentioned that we may equip body armor when found, but we are also provided with a life bar. It's possible to take a good amount of shots, but eventually we can be killed. Of course, being the game that this is, the only way to restore health is to execute civilians, which can be performed by either approaching an already down civilian, but not a dead person, and performing an execution, or knock someone down and do the same thing. By default, most of the time, a quick active cutscene will show us killing the person, but this can be disabled in the options if found too annoying. I didn't think it was too much, and wasn't really a problem to keep enabled. What happens upon death, you might be thinking? When we start each area, we are given no continues. Death means restarting the level over. As we complete main objectives or side objectives, we are awarded with a respawn point, which instead of starting the level over on death, allows us to respawn at the last location we received one without losing progress. Hatred is a pretty challenging game and doesn't mess around. After dying quite a few times and not really wanting to spend a ton of extra time replaying the same levels over and over again, I decided to actually bump this one down to easy, which I rarely do. No regrets though, because the funny thing is that the game is still pretty challenging on easy. I died a lot, but it made it a bit more manageable. I figured I wouldn't even try it on extreme. Like most games nowadays, Hatred has an assortment of unlockable achievements that can be earned by completing a variety of gameplay tasks.
My name is not important. What is important is what I'm going to do. I just fucking hate this world and these human worms feasting on its carcass. My whole life is just cold, bitter hatred. And I always wanted to die violently. This is the time of vengeance.
The story of Hatred isn't an overly complicated one. Our lead, the antagonist, hates the world and the people in it. The plan is to kill as many as he can and die violently in the process. Arming himself and stepping through his front door, the antagonist begins his rampage. Before moving on, I'll mention that I will be talking about spoilers, so if you'd like to skip ahead, go ahead and click on the annotation. Let's move on then. The chaos begins in a small town, where eventually the police are called in to take down the antagonist. Then escaping into the sewers, he decides to intercept the SWAT team before they can act first, then makes his way out and begins to rampage a small lakeshore community. The antagonist then jumps onto a train and begins to kill anyone in the path as he makes his way to the front. Learning of a nuclear power plant that he then plots to make use of, we find ourselves at a train station with plenty of civilians, and even a gang to dispatch. Then moving on to another town, the antagonist discovers a large crowd in what appears to be a politician's campaign speech, and uses it as an opportunity to increase the body count. From there, the only thing standing in the way of the nuclear facility is an army base, and you better believe chaos ensues. The antagonist clears his way through the armed forces, discovers some needed explosives, and makes his final trek to the power plant. In one last attempt, the army is sent in again to end the anarchy, but the antagonist is able to plant explosives at both cores of the plant. Reaching the control room, an employee refuses to give out the system codes and is killed in the process. The army has finally pinned down the antagonist, and he is finally stopped in a barrage of gunfire. In his last moments, he detonates the explosives, and the power plant goes up in a massive explosion, decimating everything around it. Considering coming from a small studio, Hatred is a well put together game. Despite the simple gameplay mechanics, the basic power of the Unreal Engine shows, and the added physics allowing all sorts of wanton destruction is pretty entertaining. It has that uniquely indie stylish look, making a mostly black and white palette into something interesting. Fire explosions and police lights are in full color and really sets things apart from the rest of the striking visuals. With the darkened scenery, they thoughtfully included a highlight option, so when holding left alt, items and people are highlighted with a red outline, allowing us to function just fine in the dark environments, without sacrificing the overall vision of the style. Areas are densely populated with all sorts of typical scenery to fit the areas, including shops, buildings, homes, and barracks. The music seems pretty well suited for what's going on, though nothing really stuck with me too much besides the game's intro and the ending credits music, and the ending credits music was something else. It really caps off the experience with one last bit of audio aggression. The antagonist's voice actor does a fine job delivering the incredibly over-the-top, cheesy one-liners that aren't all too surprising coming from him. As I mentioned before, with Hatred comes a large amount of controversy. It's argued that this game is inexcusable for its story and gameplay on the basis that killing innocent civilians for no purpose other than killing is offensive and serves no right to exist, other than to offend and encourage violence. I can admit that I'm not thrilled about the story premise itself, but the best comparison I can think of would be that this is kind of like the death metal of video games. Take Cannibal Corpse for example. Here's an incredibly talented pioneering death metal band, whose content is incredibly aggressive, with songs covering all sorts of tales of murder, torture, and all other forms of unimaginable horrors. And to the band, the content really is just sort of a big joke, to see how far lyrics can be pushed for the sake of pushing limits. They aren't serious about the topics, and would never encourage others to do so, but much like horror films and slasher films, this game takes the same path. It's an outlet just like any other medium, but this one taps into the dark, unspoken, sinister fantasy that lingers in the subconscious of humans. In the end though, it's just a video game, and even though it's debated, it's a creative piece of art, and has as much right to exist as any other creative piece of content, from canvas art to extreme music or boundary-pushing films like Natural Born Killers or Saw. Is this an offensive game? For some, it definitely would be. I can see that, and to those that might be, you have all the right in the world to be, but you don't have any right to tell others what they can and cannot play because you do not like it. In the aftermath of the controversy and the game making it back onto digital distribution, it was given an AO rating, or adults only rating, by the ESRB, and honestly I kind of think that's a bullshit move, and it seems like special interest groups in the ESRB are trying to save face and make a statement. To put that into perspective, there are currently 24 commercially available AO rated games by the ESRB. In the past, AO ratings were the death of a game, but now with major publishers not being a requirement to release games like this can be made. Some differentiate the content from games like Grand Theft Auto and Mortal Kombat solely based on the character's motive, but in the end, it's the same damn thing. Is Hatred a edgelord, grimdark, shock value game? Sure, yeah, but it doesn't take itself serious, and it's not telling people to go out and start a genocide. Yes, it's incredibly violent, and yes, it can be seen as unmotivated killing because no specific agenda is stated other than the elite's hatred for society, but any game where imaginary human characters may be slain, is any reason good enough? It's a video game, and it's make-believe. Hatred is a game that's not going to be for everyone, much like the other mediums I mentioned, but it's pretty easy to decide for oneself by looking at the game's trailers. Me, I'm a bit of a sucker for those things that may try to push boundaries, and I have no interest in hurting others in real life, so I can derive some entertainment from a shocking game or film. Is this my ideal game? Not at all. Is this a bad game? Not at all. The presentation and the gameplay are pretty solid, and I'd say if the gameplay and art style are something that you might enjoy, and the content of the story isn't offending to you, then I think it's a game worth playing at some point. Thanks for checking out my review of Hatred. What were your thoughts on the game? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked what you've seen or heard, please give the video a like, a share, and subscribe to see future videos. I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well, and I post a lot of other great game-related content there, and links are in the description. Until next time on the Game Grinder.
Welcome to hell!